what we are defending in Gaza and in Ukraine are not only the international law, but we have a consistent position, a consistent political positions, that we don't have double standards. We need also to understand that UN resolutions from the Security Council are binding.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and congratulations on the action plan. I know Spain provided the leadership and the heft to get that through the alliance, and you know, in another year, it might have been seen as one of the centerpieces of the summit. But for what's happening in the East, what's happened since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the full-scale war in 2022. But in the shadow of all that concerns us to the East, there's also a war happening in the South, as we all know. The war between Israel and Hamas, despite efforts to broker a ceasefire, continues. And I was wondering if you could share your thoughts on where this conflict is headed, and what are the implications for NATO's South? You ticked off some of the challenges that the southern flank of NATO face, the refugee flows and so on, terrorism. You know, where do you see this going, and what are the implications for NATO?
Well, I believe that the implications are, you know, very difficult for all of us, for NATO, and of course for all the countries in the region, in the Mediterranean, and of course the Middle East. But I think this is a global challenge for all countries. As you know, Spain and other countries in Europe, we took that step to recognize the state of Palestine, because we believe that we need to give a political horizon to the people in the region, especially in Palestine, a political horizon to create the conditions for a new state that could coexist in peaceful and with security with their neighbors, especially with Israel. So I would like to acknowledge the efforts that President Biden has been taking since the beginning of the war regarding different aspects. The first one is the release of the hostages. The second is in the beginning to support Israel in its fight against Hamas. We of course condemned the terrorist attacks to Israel perpetrated by Hamas. But on the other hand, we understand that we need to create the conditions for an immediate and urgent ceasefire. Why? Because first of all, we need to avoid any risk of escalation, and there's a real risk of escalation to Lebanon. Second, because we need to stop this terrible humanitarian crisis that the Palestinians are suffering, not only in Gaza, but also in the West Bank. And last but not least, because it will be important to convene a peace conference, an international peace conference, to create the conditions for what I said in the beginning of my speech, the two-state solution, and to create that political horizon for the people in Palestine. So I think that we need, of course, that political effort. We need also to understand that UN resolutions from the Security Council are binding, and that last UN resolution led by the US administration stated crystal clear that we need a permanent ceasefire in order to stop this terrible war and focus on the humanitarian catastrophe that we are witnessing through the international media. So, of course, I think that this is going to be one of the challenges of the southern flank that we need to face and address from our NATO organization. And we will do our utmost to create those conditions and not to be again prisoners, I would say, of a new cycle of violence in the Middle East in the years to come. I think that this is enough. There's a lot of suffering on the ground, and we need to create those political conditions to avoid any risk of escalation and, of course, a new cycle of violence in the future.
Well, I hate to jump from one gloomy environment to another, but there's another part of Europe as well that's suffering terrible violence and bloodshed right now, the brutal war that Russia is waging against Ukraine as Ukraine fights for its own independence. One of the things that we've talked about here during the course of the day with other leaders is the bridge to NATO membership that the summit is agreeing to today. I was wondering if you could kind of give us your take, the view from Spain, which is a long way away from Ukraine. What is your take on the bridge to NATO membership for Ukraine, and what do you see as the opportunities and challenges along the way?
So we actually have, Stefan, in Spain more than 200,000 refugees coming from Ukraine, even though, of course, we have this long distance. And I can tell you that large number, the majority of the Spaniards, they support our efforts regarding Ukraine, and because we understand what is at stake. It's not only the defense of the territorial integrity, the freedom, the right to exist of a nation, but also the respect of a world ruled by clear, let's say, principles. And this is also what we are defending: democracy, freedom, and the right to exist of a country such as Ukraine. So, you know, I think that it is indeed very important for our citizens to understand that what we are defending in Gaza and in Ukraine are not only the international law, but we have a consistent position, a consistent political positions, that we don't have double standards. So if we are telling our people that we are supporting Ukraine because we are defending the international law, this is the same to what we have to do towards Gaza and the war that we are now witnessing in the Middle East, saying that we are backing the international law, especially the international humanitarian law. So this is, at least from our perspective, what we defend as a country. And I would also add that, coming back to Ukraine, perhaps we don't have the conditions yet on the process for the integration of Ukraine in NATO, but in the statement, the declaration that we already endorsed, we say that path is irreversible, and this is something that is going to happen. In the meantime, what we need to do is to support and back Ukraine as all member states from the NATO. From NATO, we are doing. And last but not least, I would say that it is important, this double path, not only NATO enlargement, but also the European Union enlargement. And second semester of last year, we had the privilege to chair the European Council, and we were leading, along with the Commission, the process for the enlargement of the European Union towards Ukraine. So I think this is also very important, because at the end of the day, NATO and the European Union, we have a strategic partnership that could create those synergies, not only on the defense and security dimension, but also the political one. And this is something that I think is recognized, and people in Ukraine are grateful for that.